This is a little thing I wrote. It's called Dark Like Wood. This is a special little story for TM. Perhaps someday she'll tell me the rest of the letters in her name. Not for philosophy. Does this rose give a damn? You know the difference between me and you, she asks. I look up from my newspaper, yesterday's paper, distracted, forgetting what I've just read. She looks at me for a moment, and then lowers her eyes to the pack of camels that lays between us on the table. She reaches out with her left hand and removes one, places it in her mouth, and goes for the lighter again with her left. Her right arm lies on the table, on top of yesterday's want ads like it's dead. She returns her gaze to me and squints a hazel eye as she lights up. The difference between me and you, she mumbles, the cigarette shaking between her full lips as she talks. We're different, you know. You know that. I nod a bit and raise my eyebrows, then look back to the paper. She thumps her fingers on the table, and I think how it's the only noise in the house. No furnace rumbling, no radiators clanking, no humming refrigerator. It's 7:30 and the guys are still asleep. I imagine the thumping reverberating through the walls and into everyone's bedrooms, entering their dreams and making them toss and wake up confused. I manage to tune out the thumping and start reading an article on assisted suicides. Halfway through the article, I notice the silence. She stopped the thumping and is staring out of the window into my yard through the smoke of her cigarette she's holding in front of her chin. Her head is tipped back and her neck stretched out. She's completely still except for her eyes. I watch the brownish-green circles darting, choosing. Christ, I need to find a job. She says it as though she's speaking to no one. Not to me, not to herself. Christ, she says, like the blasphemy means something to her, like it carries weight. A dull thud comes from the other room, and she jerks a little, her eyes getting big for a moment. She lays down her cigarette and heads for the other room. Before she turns the corner, I look over to see her movements underneath her t-shirt and boxer shorts. She wears them every morning. She crosses the yard in them to get to my place from hers. She sleeps in them, I think. Sometimes she wears a thin white tank top instead, but usually just a tee and boxers, with white socks that hang around her ankles. She never wears her shoes inside, though. She leaves them at the door, even though the guys wear shoes continually because of our infrequent sweeping. I hear the front door open and shut. I think how her socks must get stained from my floor, from the dirt left by the many people that travel in and out, and who never think of the tracks they leave. Every morning she scuffs around on the linoleum, picking up the dirt. I imagine her next door, at her place, sitting on the side of her bed, tired from her long night. She takes off her little white socks, the bottoms now with an outline, a charcoal skeleton of her foot, round at the heel, thinning through the arch, and then big again with 5 dark ovals, each varying in size, and each as delicate as the gentle pounding of her rhythmic steps, now approaching behind me. She returns with this morning's paper, which she drops on the table between the places where we sit. As she walks by, her scent swirls past the back of my neck and onto my cheek. Clean laundry, cigarettes, something feminine and indescribable. She goes to sit in her chair again, but stops and moves behind me. What are you reading there? She leans over my shoulder with her face next to mine. Her straight brown hair hangs down onto my chest. I hesitate while I feel her closeness, her warmth, her breath on me. I think about her lips, what they would taste like and what they would feel like on mine. Human. Very human. I think about touching her, touching my cheek on hers, and then turning and kissing her. She's so close. If I move just 2 inches to my right. I feel myself tremble, and she turns her face slightly in my direction. I remain staring at the paper. I don't need to look to see her. The curve of her lips, her thin nose, upturned with a slight hump in the middle, her dark eyelashes and gentle gaze beneath slightly sinister eyebrows. I know her face. I see it every morning. She exhales and her breath hits my cheek near my mouth. It's thick and warm. The nerves in the corners of my eyes begin to flinch as I turn to face her. I look at her eyes from one to the other. She smiles, showing her top teeth, and returns to her chair. Where do you go at night, I ask. All over, she says. There's always something to do. You should come along sometime. Yeah, sure, and get home just in time to get up. It's a lot of fun. Besides, what do you have to get up for? Every morning I stop in after I get home, and you're wide awake at the crack of dawn. I like the regular hours. I get stuff done. No response. I guess I feel better in the mornings, I continue. Not physically better, but everyone else is still sleeping and I'm up. It's like I'm suffering or something. Suffering. She grins and nods like she could have predicted what I just said, as if I confirmed some insight she has into my character. Still, you should get out. Writers need some adventure, some indulgences, or they'd have nothing to write. Tell that to Emily Dickinson. She spent her life in her room and was able to write to millions about the human condition. I suddenly feel too academic under the silence that follows my comment. I'll go out with you sometime, I say. You don't have to, you know, she says, lighting up another cigarette. Oh, I'd like to, though. It'd be nice to see you other than just in the mornings. Yeah, she says, nodding and smiling. We could have a lot more fun than just coffee and cigarettes in the morning. We could sleep in. My cheeks burn as her steady eyes brand me. I quickly look away, grabbing this morning's paper, and read the headlines. Kevorkian plays God again. I hear no movement from her, no rustling of newspapers, no thumping of fingers, no breathing. Just a very slight crackle of tobacco combusting to ashes as she draws from her cigarette. My eyes follow the line of front-page print. Who pleaded no contest to blah, blah, blah. Trying to ignore the silence she's created. To put out of my mind the idea, the most probable suspicion, that she is still staring at me, and to extinguish the burning redness in my face. I feel her gaze all over my face as my blush and I sit in judgment for the sins we have not yet committed. And then, like a springtime gust through a slowly opening door, I hear her breath on her teeth and lips as she exhales, ending the silence. And I look up to see the smoke climbing the window pane. She has turned her head finally, and is looking again into the yard through the smoke. The difference between me and you, she says, moving only her lips. You always worry about things you might do. I worry about the things I've already done. She continues to stare out of the window, her eyes darting a little, watching birds hunting worms in the lawn, perhaps. She's rigid. The cigarette again out in front of her chin. The smoke creating a thin veil between us. And so am I, rigid. I can't breathe. I can't blink. I can only stare at her as she stares at nothing. She's dark, like wood, like a forest, like nighttime in my bedroom. Her eyes are dark, stained a rich brown like Victorian furniture, with the lighter lines of grain striking radii from black centers. If they fall upon me now,